Hello, I'm Steve McCloud, author of the book Black Dragon, The Experience of a Marine Rifle Company in the Central Pacific. There was no shortage of photographers at Iwo Jima on D-Day back in 1945, but some of them had color film in their motion picture cameras. And while some of that footage has been used repeatedly over the decades, rarely has it been known just who or what is being seen on screen. So, let's take a tour through some of that color footage shot 78 years ago today. Our journey ashore begins with LST-761, one of the 4 LSTs of the 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marines, and assigned to land assault troops at Yellow Beach 2 at Iwo Jima, so that's where we will begin our briefing. The 2nd Battalion was commanded by Major Bob Davidson and his executive officer, Major Jack Padley. Padley had previously been the company commander of Fox Company, 2nd Battalion, 23rd, until he was promoted up to battalion just before embarking for Iwo Jima. Davidson's battalion would land 2 assault companies in the first troop waves. On the left would be Easy Company, commanded by Major Lester Faught, and on his right, Fox Company, now under the command of Captain Lawrence F. Snowden, later Lieutenant General Lawrence F. Snowden. Their 2 companies would be followed by the Reserve Company, G Company, under the command of Captain Carl O.J. Gus Grusendorf, who would follow just a few minutes later. This photograph was taken on the troop transport on the way to the rendezvous at Saipan, the troop transport being the USS Mifflin. The rifle platoons traveled on the LST the entire time. That's a long trip on a small vessel. That's something we can discuss another time. Iwo Jima's 2-mile stretch of beach on the southeast coast was divided by the amphibious force into 7 potential landing beaches, although they decided only to use 6 of them. From left to right, the 5th Marine Division would land at Green Beach 1, Red 1, and Red 2, and then the 4th Marine Division on their right would land at Yellow 1, Yellow 2, and Blue 1. Blue Beach 2 was not used. It was ruled out because of the commanding ground that the Japanese held on the right flank. So, to the left of Yellow 2, Yellow Beach 1 would be assaulted by the 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines, and to the right, Blue Beach 1 would be assaulted by the 1st Battalion, 25th Marines. If we look at Yellow 2 from this aerial photograph, we can find some details that we'll see in the film footage, and namely, this blockhouse. For those who've read Black Dragon, you'll know the significance of that. And on the left, on the border between Easy Company and Fox Company, was a second blockhouse. A look at the landing wave diagram will also be helpful for us to understand what we see and don't see in the film footage from D-Day. Zooming in, we could place the 2 blockhouses in their approximate positions on Yellow Beach 2. But what I really want to bring our attention to here is this line of small craft and this group of 6 on the far left. There are 6 LCS-Ls. That's landing craft support. They're small vessels with 20 and 40 millimeter guns and rocket launchers, able to launch 240 4.5-inch rockets. And there's another group of 6 LCSs on the far side of the landing beach. And between the 2 is this group of 10 converted LCIs, landing craft infantry. These are LCI-Gs, and they're armed in a similar way with rocket launchers and 40 and 20 millimeter weapons as well. But they'll be missing from the footage of D-Day because they suffered terribly 2 days earlier while supporting the operation of underwater demolition teams, and therefore could not participate in the D-Day operations. So it fell to these 12 LCS vessels to cover the entire landing beach. I would also bring our attention to this signature here, which lies on the station between the 5th Marine Division on the left and the 4th on the right, and that's a battleship. And that is the USS Tennessee, a Pearl Harbor survivor, who's going to be right in position there. Lastly, we have a motion picture photographer aboard this LCS, and another in an Amtrak here, Coast Guardsman Charles W. Bossert, with his 35mm Bell and Howell going ashore with Easy Company. It's their footage that we'll combine to illustrate the D-Day landing at Iwo Jima. And here we are on D-Day, a beautiful morning, as LST-761 is launching the Marines of Easy Company. Also aboard is the battalion surgeon and his aid station corpsman. And I guess 18 minutes after the sun's been up over the horizon, it's as good a time as any for a smoke. Meanwhile, about 3 miles away, our little line of LCS craft are charging the beach again. They've already launched one rocket barrage against suspected gasoline drums buried on the beach. They found none, and now they're firing their 40 and 20mm guns in preparation for the arrival of the troops. And here comes Easy Company in their Amtracs. If we look closely, we'll notice a 50 caliber machine gun in the right gun position up there, and to the left, we're running alongside the Marines of A Company, 1st Battalion, 23rd. We can see their guide boat up in front, leading the way, and Amtrac right behind them, flying the yellow flag. And here we are back with our boys of Easy Company. It's an extraordinary look inside the Amtrac. And there's some things to point out here. Can you see the stencils on the back of the Marine and on the helmet cover? That 322 is the unit identification number for Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 23rd. And if we look closely at that helmet cover, we'll realize that that's Dick Knisley of Easy Company, photographed here a couple of months earlier on Maui with his buddies, and with his right arm around John Zimmerman, one of their Navy corpsmen. Meanwhile, now 700 yards from the beach, our line of LCSs launched their second rocket attack, a barrage of 120 4.5-inch rockets. And from the trajectory, it looks like they're firing them somewhere along the border between Yellow Beach 1 and Yellow 2. And we can see that border easily by that knocked out Japanese lugger there with a tall smokestack, which we'll see repeatedly in photographs and film footage. That marks the barrier between Yellow 1 and 2. And having launched their second rocket barrage, the LCSs back off and point their bows toward the beach to permit the approaching assault waves to pass through their line. And here they come, the leading wave of armored amphibians, leading the troop waves ashore and passing by the old battleship USS Tennessee, which has just fired its main batteries. We can see the brown cloud of smoke. And here come the troop-carrying waves, passing by the old Tennessee as she blasts away at targets ashore. And she's resting right on the border between the 5th and the 4th Marine Divisions. Initially, USS California had been assigned this job, but there was a switch late in the planning. Here we can actually see the armored amphibs ahead of us, and the LCSs in the distance as well. Now the armored amphibs are passing through the line of LCSs. These are the boys of Company A, 2nd Armored Amphibian Battalion. Their armored amphibs are carrying, as you can see, the turreted 75mm howitzers. And here we can see them firing their 75mm, banging away at any targets if they can see them. And here comes the first troop wave. A dozen rifle companies landing in the assault. These boys are A Company, 1st Battalion, 25th Marines, landing on Blue Beach 1, giving us a wave there. That's boat 2-3, which indicates second wave, third boat from the right. You can see their guide boat leading them ashore at Blue 1. That black area right in front of us on the beach is part of Yellow Beach 2. One more bombing run. Another good view of the Japanese lugger that's knocked out there on the beach. We can see those guide boats getting the heck out of the way there. And now as the first troop wave approaches the shore, if we look closely, right now we can see the first wave of armored Amtracs clawing their way up out of the ocean and onto the beach. And that appears to be the first troop wave reaching the shore. And here comes the second troop wave. And with it, the company commander, company gunny, mortarmen, and flamethrower men. And here, our photographer has captured Fox Company 2nd Battalion 23rd hitting the beach at Iwo Jima. Let's pause for a closer look here. First, notice the height of the embankment compared to the height of the Marines. They weren't kidding when they said this thing was 12 to 15 feet high. We can also see right dead center the outline of the blockhouse. So with one more look, we see the second wave arriving, bringing 3rd Platoon ashore. And looking at the right, we can see Marines pouring out of the Amtraks and clawing up to the top of the embankment. And they'll swing around the outside and push inland quickly. And there's the 25th Marines also pushing up. And one of our Easy Company boys landing on the wrong side of that Japanese lugger and on the wrong beach, on Yellow Beach 1. Notice how low the embankment is here. Extraordinary to be coming ashore with the first troop wave there. Boy, that's a dangerous position there, caught in a trap. Now, we don't know if these are Easy Company guys or perhaps 1st Battalion. Now, there was a machine gun section landing in the same Amtrak as the photographer, so it could well be. Now, we can say that that Amtrak belongs to the 2nd Battalion 23rd Marines, and those are 2nd Battalion boys coming ashore. And for some reason, the ramp is not down on that Amtrak, an LVT-4, and they're jumping over the sides. Don't know why. Easy Company did come ashore with 2 of those LVT-4s in its second troop wave, but they should have been toward the center of Yellow Beach 2, not way over here, but who knows what's going on there. Could be a follow-up Amtrak. Here's the classic view of 2nd Battalion Marines pushing inland, trying to churn through the sand of Iwo Jima. But keep in mind, it's not really sand, it's volcanic grit, 60% glass. So not only could you barely run in it, you couldn't dig in. And if you were going to try to dig a hole, they would tell you, you better dig one big hole because it's just going to come right back in on you. Here we see the armored amphibians pushing inland to provide some supporting fire where possible. But that word armored is a misnomer. It could be misleading. They don't have much armor on the sides, simply that howitzer up top. And our photographer has captured the moment at 9:40 when LSM-126 touches down and launches finally some of Major Bob Neiman's tanks of C Company, 4th Tank Battalion. In fact, he's got the 2nd and 3rd Platoon tanks aboard of Max English and Hank Belmont. We see Cairo headed ashore there. We can tell it's a platoon leader's tank because we see that tall radio antenna sticking out the top. Following close behind, this is Calcutta, both of these of the 2nd Platoon. Now, somewhere around 10 o'clock is when the Japanese, they tell us, began to really unload with their heavy mortars and artillery and the plunging fire. And unless we thought we were going to see seas of Marines sweeping across the beach, this paints a more realistic picture for us. And this is trouble. This shot shows us LSM-126 backing off the beach, having launched her tanks, and some more of the follow-on troops working their way in. We see more LSMs in the distance back there. Landing Ship Medium is what that stands for. And I wanted to include this shot. For those who've read Black Dragon, you're familiar with the plight of Lieutenant Haber and Major Neiman trying to get those tanks ashore to support 2nd Battalion. Here you can see Haber slam on the brakes and throw it in reverse. Their struggle will go on for 4 hours.